Hello, my darlings. Today in this video, we'll be reading Old Granny Fox, Chapters 7 and 8. In Chapter 6, Granny played a trick on old Bowser the Hound Dog and then went to take a nap in the sunny knoll. But Farmer Brown's boy was on to her tricks and was waiting in the forest watching her. Chapter 7. Granny Fox Has a Bad Dream. Nothing ever simply happens. Bear that point in mind. If you look long and hard enough, a cause you'll always find, said Old Granny Fox. Old Granny Fox was dreaming. Yes, sir, she was dreaming. There she lay, curled up on the sunny little knoll on the edge of the Green Forest, fast asleep and dreaming. It was a very pleasant and very comfortable place indeed. You see, jolly, round, bright Mr. Sun poured his warmest rays down there from the blue, blue sky, and when Old Granny Fox was tired, she often slipped over there for a short nap and sunbathed even in the winter. She was quite sure that no one knew anything about it. It was her secret. This morning, Old Granny Fox was very tired, unusually so. In the first place, she had been out hunting all night. Then, before she could reach home, Bowser the Hound had found her tracks and started to follow them. Of course, it wouldn't have done any good to go home then. It wouldn't have done good at all. Bowser would have followed her straight there and so found out where she lived. So she had led Bowser far away across the Green Meadows and through the Green Forest and finally played one of her smart tricks which had so mixed her tracks that Bowser could no longer follow them. While he had sniffed and snuffed and snuffed and sniffed with that wonderful nose of his, trying to find out where she had gone, Old Granny Fox trotted straight to the sunny knoll and there curled up to rest. Right away she fell asleep. Now Old Granny Fox, like most of the other little people of the Green Forest and the Green Meadows, sleeps with her ears wide open. Her eyes may be closed, but not her ears. Those are always on guard, even when she was asleep, and at the least sound, open fly her eyes, and she is ready on the run. If it were not for the way her sharp ears kept guard, she wouldn't dare take naps in the open right in broad daylight. If you ever want to catch a fox asleep, you mustn't make the teeniest, weeniest noise. Just remember that. Now Old Granny Fox had no sooner closed her eyes than she began to dream. At first it was a very pleasant dream, the pleasantest dream a fox could have. It was of a chicken dinner, and all the chicken she could eat. Granny certainly enjoyed that dream. It made her smack her lips quite as if it were real, and not just a dream dinner she was enjoying. But presently the dream changed, and became a bad dream. Yes, indeed, it became a bad dream. It was as bad as the first it had been good. It seemed to Granny that Bowser the Hound had become very smart, smarter than she had ever known him to be before. Do what she would, she couldn't fool him. Not one of all the tricks she knew, and she knew a great many, fooled him at all. They didn't puzzle him long enough for her to catch her breath. Bowser kept getting nearer and nearer and nearer, all in the dream, until it seemed as if his great voice sounded right at her very heels. She was so tired that it seemed to her that she couldn't run another step. It was a very, very real dream. You know how dreams sometimes do seem very real indeed? This was the way it was with the bad dream of Old Granny Fox. It seemed to her that she could feel the breath of Bowser the Hound, and that his great jaws were just going to close in on her and shake her to death. "Oh, oh!" cried Granny, and waked herself up. Her eyes flew open, and then she gave a great sigh of relief as she realized that her terrible fright was only a bad dream, and that she was curled up right on the dear, familiar old sunny knoll, and not running for her life at all. Old Granny Fox smiled to think what a fright she had had, and then, well, she didn't know whether she was really awake or still dreaming. No, sir, she didn't. For a full minute she couldn't be sure whether what she saw was real or part of that dreadful dream. You see, she was staring into the face of Farmer Brown's boy and the muzzle of his dreadful gun. For just a few seconds she didn't move. She couldn't. She was too frightened to move. And then she knew what she saw was real and not a dream at all. There wasn't the least bit of doubt in it. That was Farmer Brown's boy, and that was his dreadful gun. All in a flash she knew that Farmer Brown's boy must have been hiding behind those pine burrows. Poor old Granny Fox. For once in her life she had been caught napping. She hadn't the least hope in the world. Farmer Brown's boy had only the fire of the dreadful gun, and that would be the end of her. She knew it. That's the end of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. What Farmer Brown's Boy Did. In a time of danger, heed this rule. Think hard and fast, but pray keep cool. Old Granny Fox. Poor old Granny Fox. She had thought that she had been in a tight places before, but never, never had she been in such a tight place as this. There stood Farmer Brown's boy looking along the barrel of his dreadful gun straight at her. And only such a short distance, such a very short distance away. It wasn't the least bit of use to run. Granny knew that. The dreadful gun would go bang, and that would be the end of her. For a few seconds she stared at Farmer Brown's boy, too frightened to move, to even think, and then she began to wonder why that dreadful gun didn't go off. What was Farmer Brown's boy waiting for? She got to her feet. She was sure that the first step would be her last, yet she couldn't stay there. How could Farmer Brown's boy do such a dreadful thing? Somehow his freckled face didn't look cruel. He was even beginning to grin. That must be because he had caught her napping and knew that this time she couldn't possibly get away from him, and she saw so many times before. Oh, sobbed Granny Fox under her breath. And right at that very instant, Farmer Brown's boy did something. What do you think it was? No, he didn't shoot her. He didn't fire his dreadful gun. What do you think he did do? Why, he threw a snowball at old Granny Fox and shouted, "Boo!" That is what he did, and all he did, except to laugh, as Granny gave a great leap and then made those black legs of hers fly like never before. Every instant Granny expected to hear that dreadful gun, and it seemed as if her heart would burst with fright as she ran, thinking each jump would be the last one. But the dreadful gun didn't bang, and after a little, when she felt it was safe, she turned and looked back over her shoulder. Farmer Brown's boy was standing right where she had last seen him, and he was laughing harder than ever. Yes, sir, he was laughing. And although old Granny Fox didn't think so at the time, his laugh was good to hear, for it was good-natured and merry, and all that an honest laugh should be. "Go, Granny, go!" shouted Farmer Brown's boy, "and the next time you are tempted to steal my chickens, just remember that I caught you napping, and I let you off. I might have shot you. Just remember, and leave my chickens alone." Now it happened that Tommy, the chickadee, had seen all that had happened, and he fairly bubbled over with joy. "Dee, dee, dee, chickadee! It is just as I have always said. Farmer Brown's boy isn't bad. He'd be friends with everyone if everyone would let him," he cried. Maybe, grumbled Sammy Jay, who had also seen all that had happened. "But he's altogether too smart for me to trust. Oh my, what news this will be to tell. Old Granny Fox will never hear the end of it. If ever again she boasts of how smart she is, all we'll have to do is to remind her of the time Farmer Brown's boy caught her napping. Ho, ho, ho! I must hurry along and find my cousin, Blacky the Crow. This will tickle him half to death." As for old Granny Fox, she feared Farmer Brown's boy more now than ever, not because of what he had done to her, but because of what he had not done. You see, nothing could make her believe that he wanted to be her friend. She thought he had let her get away just to show her that he was smarter than she. Instead of thankfulness, hate and fear filled Granny's heart. You know, people who themselves do ill for others seldom have goodwill. Well, we've reached the end of Chapter 8. I would say old Granny Fox got lucky this time. Do you think Farmer Brown's boy taught her a new lesson? I hope she stays away from the chickens from now on, but we'll have to wait and see what happens next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss chapters 9 and 10. Take care, stay safe, and thanks for listening.